Hello again, it is me, your host, Amateur Overlord, and I have been promising you a guest, and today we have Amazing Menace, and the subject that we're going to discuss today as a two-part dynamic duo type situation is men wearing dresses. Like, it's becoming a thing now. You got the Will, you got the Jaden Smiths. Who else?
Kanye West sort of wore a dress, but it was like a kilt. He said it was a kilt, but people were still killing him regardless. And that was a while back. Remember that?
Yeah. Young Thug does weird. Yeah. I know back in the day, one of the first people to do this that people don't necessarily remember unless they're like my age is Dennis Rodman. He was there signing his book in the mall, in a wedding dress, like.
But Dennis Rodman is known for being kind of eccentric though, so people tend to give him that pass.
Okay. So personally, as a young black man, I mean you're younger than myself. As a young black man, what is your opinion on black men or men in general just wearing dresses? We'll go to black men as we continue. What do you say?
It's a tricky one, honestly. I think growing up, there's things that are assigned for genders, as you know. Boys do this, girls do that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the sort of more basic things is clothing. And it never was really an issue when you think about it. You just assume boys would wear shorts, or trousers.
Manly clothing, female clothing.
And girls wear dresses or trousers, whatever. So this whole cross is a little bit interesting. For the starters, you have those would argue it's self-expression. People have a right to wear what they want to wear.
True.
And then others, if you want to go into, we're going to speak about black people later in the...
No, you can speak on it now, man. We can segue into it. Don't worry about that.
So there is the sort of thing where people say that it seems to be a thing now to effeminate black men. Is that the right word to use?
Feminize
black men. And some people were saying how them being portrayed wearing dresses is the start of it, which I think that's a bit of a reach for me. I think it's a bit of a reach. I think it's more to do with self-expression. If I'm just going off of the people I see wearing it, it tends to be more to do with self-expression and more to do with just causing controversy than anything else, which is at the core of a lot of things that people do today, is just to stir up talk.
I think that there is some credence to that whole conspiracy theory, and I'll say this because the people that we see wearing these dresses are always prominent black men who people look to emulate. People look to emulate the Jaden Smiths, the Young Thugs, the Kanye Wests. They're not looking for Junebug on the block in his dress, or somebody that they don't aspire to be. They don't see them people wearing those dresses or have the idea of wearing a dress pitched to them. You notice Jaden Smith wore that dress that one time for that ad campaign. We ain't seen him in it since. And even his dad, when he came over here, was on the BBC saying, maybe things have gotten a bit far. I don't know how I feel about him wearing dresses. And Will Smith has done a number of questionable things as far as his sexuality. It's his business. It's on a spectrum. He can do what he wants. It's his, what he eats don't make me shit. So I ain't mad at him. But it's like, when I think about it, I always think to myself, I feel that black men particularly haven't reached that level where we're at, like we haven't got that respect in society to where we can be that experimental yet. That's the word. Like, I don't think we're there yet. I think we're just post civil rights, and that was the 1960s. So I'm like, it's a little early for you to get creative. It's like you haven't even learned to cook yet, and now you're adding flavors and stuff that ain't part of the recipe. Personal opinion. What do you think?
To that point, and I guess it kind of will roll over to our next topic. We were talking about Kanye West, but I think it's a tricky one. It is a tricky one because, like, you look at anything. What's that guy doing wearing a dress? I'm trying to think if there's anything more to it than that. Personally, I don't think it is. I think most of the time when you see people doing that type of stuff, it's just to create controversy online. When you look at when Jaden did it, how many people were talking about him prior to him doing that? If he'd done that before an album rollout, I would say that was simply just publicity for music, which is what Young Thug did. When you look at when he, around the time when he started to wear dresses, it was prior to him releasing an album, which is why I was thinking, he knows what's going to get people talking. Let me just throw on this skirt, get a whole bunch of people talking about me. You know the expression, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Publicity is
True.
publicity.
True.
So I think it's more to do with that than anything else. The point you was making about how black people, or let's say black men in society, haven't come far enough yet to be experimenting like that.
Personal opinion.
I would say the opposite, actually. I think that for our society, because, well, when you look at, we're going to go from, let's say, slavery being controlled. Kanye West mentioned it when he talked about mental slavery, although I think when he said it, the way he expressed himself was completely wrong.
He's bipolar and in a state of mania. We'll talk about it soon.
Yeah, we'll talk about it soon. But I think the way he expressed his point was wrong. The thing I think what he was trying to say, and what kind of relates to this, is as a society, I think we're too conscious of what other people and other races think of ourselves. Is that a fair assessment to make?
You mean as black men, we care too much what other people think of black people?
Yeah, a little bit. So, like, to the point you're saying that we haven't progressed enough yet to the point we should be wearing dresses. Why should black men even care what other people think about us wearing dresses per se?
You could stop me as I go off on this because it's personal to you. You were in a cab the other day, you let me know, and the gentleman in the cab started to make insinuations about who you are as a person. He, if I can speak on it,
yeah, sure,
he was there basically saying he thinks that you only date white girls or this or that. And you and I grew up in similar environments, and I've met black women and other black people who say similar things to me. Now, I've got no problem dating anybody. I'll date who I want to date. But I find a lot of times when I come across my own people, they have certain
preconceived notions.
Yeah, about who I am and what I do and what I don't do, and that's just because I probably don't fit the what their idea of this type of person would like.
You don't fit the stereotype.
Yeah, I'm not.
Sorry to cut you. I don't know.
No. I was done. Hit me.
Similar to that, though, wouldn't you say that's the case with every race? Every race has a certain set of stereotypes that people associate with them, whether you be white, whether you're Asian. Wouldn't you say that's an issue that every culture faces? Maybe not to the extent that black people do.
I say with the exception of white people, yes. I think white people are allowed a great deal of flexibility in how they are able to express themselves, as opposed to other races. A lot of the Asian kids at school, or the kids from, like the Philippines and China and Japan, everyone thinks they're good at math. There's a whole bunch of kids that ain't good at math from those places. Like, there's these stupid little weird stereotypes that everyone believes. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I hear you.
And so it's like, yeah, there are other people that are held to these stereotypes or ridiculous standards based on their cultural ethnicity, and that's gonna include us. I don't know what the current Afro-Caribbean cultural stereotype is.
That
I know some negative ones.
Yeah. Could be a topic.
Yeah.
I mean, damn. Okay.
I know some negative ones, but yeah.
Probably one for another time.
But it's like, yeah, I think that we are kind of hard on ourselves in what we think is acceptable and what we don't. I think that I like the fact that people can express themselves, but then at the same time, I'm wondering, is some of this stuff just gonna be confusing? Because I'm not saying there should be one gender or another. I'm just like, what is the benefit of it? My sister and myself, I don't know if I told you, but my sister, my younger sister, she was like, oh, I'd let my son wear a dress. And I'm thinking, all right, cool. I don't know if it was Paloma. What's her name? Paloma, whatever the hell her name is?
I'm not too sure, actually.
She's a singer. I forget. Anyway, it's like these people are going to the extreme of trying to make gender like a thing of the past, or like...
Well, it's no longer just male, female, it's now a spectrum.
Yeah, so it's like...
And you wake up one day, you could be a woman, wake up another day and be a man, and now somehow in society we're meant to just be accepting of that. To bring it back full circle, then, do you think men wearing dresses is all tangled up into this new wave that we're on where anyone can do whatever they want type thing? Or is it just a case of people just express themselves however they want to, and people that don't like necessarily men wearing dresses are just maybe not quite there yet in terms of being more forward thinking?
Well, that's interesting because I grew up in the early 80s, and that was a time of androgyny, and if you watch the Chappelle Show, he talks about it. People or the stuff that you saw Rick James wearing on the cover of the album, a lot of these rock stars, they were wearing, there you go. Classic androgyny. Classic androgyny. Okay. So I think fashion does a circle. It goes around like you're gonna see people start dressing like they did back in the early 90s when gangster rap was. You're gonna see baggy clothes gonna come around again. Then they'll go back to tighter clothes and different. Like you'll just see style just does a loop. Bell bottoms will keep coming in and going out and coming in and going out, and that's what it is because no one's coming up with any new ideas about fashion really. But when I think about it, I say to myself like the way my sister was saying it to me is like. It's one thing for that young man or that child of hers to say he wants to wear a dress, but she's saying it like she'll put him in one before he's even asked, just to break that barrier down. Like, that's my problem with it. Like, people like I'm afraid that in schools they're gonna, and maybe this me just overreacting, that they're gonna have my son out there
rocking dresses,
and they're telling him it's okay. No, I don't want my son in a dress. Like, unless that's the only clothes we have, you know, then you can wear the dress. But I don't. If he says to me, yo, Pops, I was at the mall today, saw this nice red dress.
I rock past this dress, you know, Dad. The dress
like,
is calling me, yo.
I felt like I should wear it, Dad.
I'm powered in that dress,
I said, word, son, I love you. You came from my loins. Me and your mother created you together. If you wear that dress, my goddamn.
Now, you know, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that. I'm all for people being able to express themselves and kind of do what they want, to a degree. Wearing dresses is one of those things. But then again, having said that, I had to then think, well, if I'm a dad and my son was to walk in a dress.
And like that scene from Empire and shit.
Yeah. How would I react? I won't throw my guy in the bin. Spoiler alert. But I'm trying to think, what would my reaction be? And
I'd be like,
yeah, I would be taken aback. I would be taken aback. So having said that, that does say to me then that there is more than meets the eye with that whole thing. It's a tough one. That's why, as I said, it's a really tricky one. I think it depends on preference. It depends why you're doing it for starters.
Yeah, I need to know where his head.
Yeah.
I've told myself that when I'm a parent,
why.
I need to, before I react strongly to anything my child does, I need to know where their head's at, because discipline or understanding your child is all about correction, if there needs to be any. And before you can correct someone, you need to know what their mindset was. So I need to know if he even needs to be corrected. Like, I need to know where his mindset is, because he's still a person. So he's gone through his little human brain and said that this is an acceptable course of action, and I need to determine why. Because it could be that he did it just to shock me. He thinks it's funny. He might really, really want that. He want to wear that dress, and that will be something that we have to address and address as a family.
Also, bearing in mind, as you know, growing up, your parents' reactions to things you do can have a huge bearing on not only that situation at that time, but also it can stay with you for years later. So then you freaking out, being, "What, my son's wearing just get out of my yard." Or even in the scene in Empire when his dad throws him in the bin. Look, years later, that still affects my guy. So it's like, like I said, it's a tricky one. There's more than meets the eye with it. It revolves around self-expression. But at the same time, you know, you do need to look into it a little bit.
Wow. It's a lot here, folks. It's a lot here.
Yep.
Got us out here wearing dresses.
And on that note, folks,
Yeah.
till next time.
Peace out.